Good evening and welcome to your English news package with Radio and Television Tonga for the hour. Making headlines, His Majesty King Nuku'alofa VI highlights significance of climate change during COP27 in Egypt. International Children's Day marked in Tonga today, and autopsy carried out to determine cause of death for a woman who died in a house fire yesterday. Now for stories in details. His Majesty King Nuku'alofa VI highlighted Tonga's vulnerability to climate change during his COP27 speech yesterday in Egypt. His Majesty King Nuku'alofa VI at the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, 27th session of the Conference of the Parties in Egypt.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, Secretary General, Your Excellency Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Please accept my sincere congratulations and best wishes on your presidency of the 27th session of the Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The opportunity is also taken to commend the UNFCCC Secretariat and staff for their timeless efforts and impeccable preparation to facilitate this conference. I would like to thank the Government of Egypt and the City of Sharm el-Sheikh for your warm hospitality since our arrival in the beautiful City of Peace. Mr. President, 30 years ago, the United Nations charted a course in adopting the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and in 2015 we gave this journey a new raison d'etre in the Paris Agreement. At COP26 in Glasgow, parties increased ambition and kept the hope of 1.5 degrees alive. We acknowledge and commend the outcomes of COP26 and note that we will only be a step closer to our goals if every country delivers on their pledges. We are here to make progress from where we stood with Glasgow Climate Pact, and more importantly, with the commitments we made at the adoption of the Paris Agreement. The theme chosen for the 27th session of the Conference of Parties, Delivering for People and the Planet, is both a timely and an essential reminder of the urgency of the task at hand for the survival of the Earth and for us, its inhabitants. Our task in delivering for our people and our planet is to agree to goals with the highest ambition possible and to act together and before the impacts become irreversible for us, all of us. We no longer have the luxury of time. The inherent physical attributes of our islands in the Pacific Ocean make climate change the single greatest threat that will determine the future of small island developing states like the Kingdom of Tonga. My kingdom is the third most vulnerable country in the world to the adverse effects of climate change. As a people, we share a deep connection to the ocean. As with many other Pacific Island countries, Tonga is heavily dependent upon its fisheries and ocean resources for food, transport, economic development, and culture. Historically, the Tongan people have always shown resilience in the face of such natural disasters. However, the record rates of increased coastal erosion ocean acidification, the loss of coral reefs, coupled with ever-present rising sea levels, 3 times higher than the global average. Our ability to respond to the increasing multiplicity of disasters and the increasing severity and intensity of extreme weather patterns is now undermined. On the 15th of January this year, Tonga experienced a volcanic explosion equal to none in our living history. Homes were destroyed, lives were lost, and entire communities are deeply traumatized by sonic explosions and the resulting tsunami waves. Population displacement has now become a permanent feature for my people. In the aftermath of the explosion, we experienced the care, compassion, and support of the global community and our neighboring countries in response and recovery efforts. Mr. President, I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you who have made a contribution to the recovery efforts of my people. I acknowledge your kindness and the compassion shown towards the people of the Kingdom of Tonga. Please allow me to highlight 2 key future challenges resulting from this unprecedented volcanic explosion. The first is our access to clean, safe drinking water. The pollution of rainwater in the aftermath of the explosion highlighted the vulnerability of water storage sites in the outer islands. This urgent reality places greater importance on the access to available water desalination technologies that can operate on renewable energy. The second challenge as an ocean state is to offer affordable transportation that does not add to our greenhouse gas emissions. Our culture and history as people of the ocean has taught us to live in harmony with our environment. In the near future, we will need to reacquaint our people with such livelihoods and use cutting-edge technologies that promote wind-powered, low-carbon emitting modes of transport. As small island developing states, we cannot face the challenges presented to all of us alone. We are firmly committed to international goals. In 2020, the Government of Tonga submitted its second nationally determined contribution under the Paris Agreement, setting ambitious mitigation and adoption goals. In addition, Tonga's long-term low-emission development strategy sets targets in sectors including energy, transport, waste management, and the resettlement of communities. Global objectives must be directly translated into our mission and journey, charting a pathway for a resilient, sustainable, and inclusive future for Tonga. Such goals and measures also support the implementation of the Tonga climate change policy from 2016 and uphold the overarching goal of a climate change resilient Tonga by 2035. For small island developing states like Tonga, adoption to climate change generates larger benefits when delivered in conjunction with other development activities such as disaster risk reduction and community-based approaches to development. My kingdom shares the concerns of other countries in the Pacific Islands Forum. In solidarity, we endorse the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent that highlights the challenges that we face as a region and symbolizes our drive to respond to our ever-changing environment. As the impacts of climate change are intergenerational and our actions and decisions today will have a major bearing on the future of our people, I'm encouraged by the agenda at COP27 over the coming days. I hope that all of us here present will be inspired, motivated, and driven into action on firm commitments, a sense of shared responsibility, and connection with the global community. This will be a testament to the genuine partnerships of all parties in raising ambitions and actions towards achieving the goals of the Paris Agreement. May we always keep in mind the impacts of our decisions and actions here at COP27 as we chart our course towards a successful, prosperous, and sustainable future. A future where the well-being, survival, and peace of future generations are their inheritance. Thank you.
Attending the program was Her Majesty Queen Nanasi-Pau'u, Speaker of Parliament Lord Whakawhanua, Prime Minister Honourable Huakawa Meiliko, along with the rest of the Tonga team delegation to the COP27 meeting. Preparation and readiness is of utmost importance during times of natural disasters such as tsunamis. Today, a coconut tree climbing race competition were held in Navutoka and Nuku'alofa to better prepare people for times of tsunami disasters. This was part of a national natural disaster drill led by the National Emergency Management Office, or otherwise known as NEMO, in Navutoka, in the villages of Navutoka and Nuku'alofa. The aim is for people to learn the proper actions that must be taken when a natural disaster warning is announced. Participants in today's drill said they found today's activities very useful. An autopsy was conducted to determine the cause of death for the 46-year-old woman who died in a house fire incident in Vava'u yesterday. Information from police says that they will wait for the results of the autopsy before proceeding with any legal matters. This includes making arrests if needed. This is the first house fire incident for the month that has claimed a life. Police are still investigating the origin of the fire. It is understood the fire began from the kitchen before it gutted the whole house, with the deceased unable to escape. Meanwhile, the fire and emergency services is highlighting the significance for people to ensure their houses have several exits to be able to escape in times of emergencies. This is to ensure such tragedies will be prevented in the future. Meanwhile, radio and television Tonga News are still awaiting the results of the autopsy from the Tonga Police Department. Tongan climate activist and musician Amelia Kami, better known as the Mia Kami, wants to install ocean conservation and climate change into Tonga's school curriculum to ensure a more sustainable future for the children of Tonga. Kami expressed this during a press club of the Mets Association of Tonga, or Mets, which was held at the Ancient Tonga in Whangaloto last night. We'll have Mark Ake with that story.
The theme for the press club was Making Waves, Climate Change Music and Youth, and students from various secondary schools, including the Bow Tertiary Institute School of Music, were in attendance, as well as journalists. Miyakami performed 4 songs which touched on different themes, such as climate change, ocean conservation, and reclaiming heritage and culture. The songs tell how the Pacific is connected by the ocean, which if isn't taken care of, culture, identity, and traditions can be lost. However, during the press club's Q&A session, a student from Axe Community School asked Gummy what she would do if she were a minister or a prime minister to further promote her message. In response, Gummy mentioned 2 things she would push for if she were in a ministerial role.
I was a law and politics student, and so I would love to get into politics here locally at some point in my life, after Tonga, of course. But to answer your question, 3 things that I feel are very important. The first thing is pushing ocean conservation and climate action into our school curriculums and teaching our children from young about the importance of being connected to our land, our ocean, and our ancestry. I think pushing that more at the education level will allow more people to think critically about how can we ensure a more sustainable future for those that will come after us. That's the first thing. The second thing is continuing to raise awareness at the community level, but also not starting from the top down, but from the bottom up. So we go into the grassroots communities and we talk about how can we help ensure that your community stays safe, that your communities feel safe when the threat of climate change is advancing towards them.
Kami urged the youth to challenge elders and leaders more, and not in a disrespectful manner, but in a way that encourages intergenerational conversation so they can get answers to make a difference even if it makes them uncomfortable. She urged leaders to be more open to the questions from the youth so they don't repeat the same mistakes. Kami recently received the United Nations SDG Vanguard Award in recognition of leaders whose work and impact reflects the urgency of the SDG agenda and the imperative to leave no one behind.
The Ministry of Education and Training marked the importance of children ages 13 and below by marking National Children's Day yesterday.
The Ministry of Education and Training's head of early childhood education, Tongatapu, said that this year's event was based on traditional Tongan customs and culture. Tongatapu said that empowering and developing the rights of children for a better future is rooted in values they are being taught from infancy until the age of 13. This prepares and equips children in this period of their lives so they can achieve what they want in the future. Universal Children's Day was marked yesterday with children wearing traditional Tongan attires and performing traditional Tongan acts at the Apifo'o College Hall, and Her Honorable Anaspa'u Eliana Nuku'alofa was the guest of honor. More activities were held today to celebrate Universal Children's Day, which included a sports program for preschools and a prayer service. However, Tongatapu urged parents and teachers to do their best in taking care of their children in all aspects, such as physical, mental, and spiritual.
And the Prime Minister, Honorable Huakavamiliko, has endorsed the South Pacific Defence Ministers' Communique joint meeting that was adopted in Nuku'alofa last month. Anasi Falikano tells you more.
The communique includes the delegates acknowledged the challenges posed by threats such as climate change, the single greatest threat to the Pacific. Delegates acknowledged Fiji's development of a regional humanitarian assistance and disaster relief response framework to enhance regional coordination. They also recognized the value of a now annual regional exercise, Long Reach. Delegates agreed to a plan to refresh the Bovai Endeavour framework and cooperative exercise plan, reaffirming a shared commitment to improving coordination between militaries and the Pacific. The delegates agreed to recommence the Future Leaders Summit in 2023, which had been postponed due to COVID-19 pandemic. New Zealand will host the next iteration in 2023. Defence ministers and senior delegates from Australia, Chile, Fiji, France, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea were in Tonga together with the staff from His Majesty's Armed Forces, and observer nations included Japan, United Kingdom and the United States met at Nuku'alofa for the annual South Pacific Defence Ministers meeting last month.
Before we part, is a final look at tonight's top stories. His Majesty King Tongatapu VI highlights the significance of climate change for Tonga during COP27 in Egypt. Universal Children's Day marked in Tonga today, and autopsy carried out to determine cause of death for a woman who died in a house fire yesterday in Vava'u. That's it for tonight. Thank you for your company. Have a blessed day.